Hi folks, KGB313 here, and I'm putting together a video today to show a friend of mine how you can use a scene as a source in OBS to put a scene within a scene. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some ways that it can be useful, but let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so this is an excellent example. Just on this screen alone, this is an excellent example of where using a scene within a scene can be very useful. Sometimes you want to have it to where you play a intro video, for example, at the beginning of a stream. Well, when you do that, you don't want to have to be Johnny on the spot and change scenes at the exact moment that you need it to switch, right? You want it to go where the video ends and it just goes to whatever scene you have of you talking or whatever. Okay? You don't necessarily want to have like a whole list of videos on there and turn them on and off. Because if video is active and you switch to that scene, the video is going to play. So you don't always want that to happen. So let me show you what I'm actually doing in OBS Studio. I can do that best with my display cap scene. Okay, and I realize this is a little bit disorienting, so I'm going to turn on studio mode. And this way I can show you what's going on in a variety of different scenes. And I can show you what the sources are for those individual scenes without it going crazy in the background here. And it can keep me on screen so I can narrate for you. So, I have different things that I will vary from one scene to the next. So things like camera positioning. You'll see when I play Overwatch, I want my camera in a slightly different position than what I do on this screen, for example. Other games, you know, I might want a different background, or I may want, like I said, different positioning, or I may want different elements to appear on the screen, such as a specific type of controller visualizer, or things like these death splits that I'm using here. Okay? So, let me illustrate one way to make this concept very simple. I do a special type of challenge run within Dark Souls that I call Big 7. It's where you don't level the character and you do all these different restrictions, right? And when I play that, I keep a description of what it is on the screen because people ask so frequently. And I also do things like I display the number of boss deaths and the number of bosses killed. So at any given time, you know where we stand within that run. Okay? So I do this with several different games. But let's say I want to put this in, but I don't necessarily want it to be, I don't want to do it individually. Okay? So I've got my scene down here called Big 7 that has all those elements on it. They're all part of this Big 7 scene. I got my boss count, I got my death count, I got my description. Okay? So now I can go to like my Dark Souls scene, and all I have to do is add a scene, add existing, I add Big 7, and boom, there it is. Now I've got all those labels appear on there. Okay? Now, maybe I don't necessarily want it on Dark Souls 2. Maybe I do. I just add the scene. So rather than having to add all of those individually, I just add the scene. It adds all three of them at once. Excuse me. This can be a good way to group things in an overlay where you want to have like a standard format, for example. And I can do the same thing again here. I just add that scene. And then boom, you've got it. So you could do the same thing if you were looking to add, for example, things like splits for a speed run. You could put that on its own scene, and then you could overlay it. And what's nice about that is if you look at, like, for example, Dark Souls, maybe I'm not always playing Big 7. Well, if I do, I just turn that scene off and all those elements disappear. Right? And so it's just, now it's a toggle. Either they're on or they're off. So you can see it a little more directly. Okay? So this is when I'm playing Dark Souls 2. This is when I'm playing at Big 7. Right? And I can just add or subtract those as I choose. Maybe I want them a little further down on the list, but yeah. So there you go. Great example of how to do it. But there's lots of other ways to do it. So, like, for example, on that intro video, the video ends, boom, I've got my scene right behind it. So let's go to that. Let's go back to our display cap. Studio mode. And let's show that short intro that I did. You have the short intro video will play anytime I go to this scene. And then after it's done playing, everything for my talking heads scene is right behind it. So when the video ends, it immediately shows my talking head scene behind it. So this is just a it's just something handy that I've found can be very valuable when you want to keep most things the same, but there are some small elements that you want to vary from game to game, or maybe you have something that you only do some of the time, like speedrunning, for example, or those Big 7. You know, maybe you only want to have that on screen some of the time, and you don't want to have to tinker a lot. You want it to be just one press on or off. So anyway, just an idea. If it's helpful, go ahead and leave me a like, and subscribe if you really like my content. Check me out on Twitch. Other than that, have a good one.